Good morning, everybody. I've got the Grange latest Ofsted report in my hand, and I'm going to be meeting with a parent who we're just going to have a discussion and a dialogue about it. This is a parent who's been here for longer than myself. As head teacher, I've been here since September 2018. And in that time, myself together with the whole team and with parents, we've been working really hard to make our school great. Ofsted obviously have their evaluation. They came in, they've looked at our school, they've given us a snapshot. They went on the 5th and the 6th of June 2019, and the report has come out this week. It is going to go live on the Ofsted website on Monday, but at this particular moment in time we're sharing it with parents. We've already shared with staff and had a big staff meeting, and we've also had a parent meeting, and I'm very grateful to the parents who took the time to come to that meeting because it was a short notice meeting after Ofsted gave us the report. And we're sending out the report to parents in a wider format today, and also in the newsletter. I'll write a little bit of an article as well. But here today what we want to do is have a bit of a dialogue, parent representing parents and head teacher representing staff and governors in the school, and just a little bit of a dialogue about our report as we begin to digest Ofsted's evaluation, and more importantly take the feedback that they've given us to really drive our school forward, raise the standards, raise the outcomes, and get the best for the children of Grange. The report itself has been given an overall effectiveness requires improvement to be good judgment. And there are different categories. They've singled out in this Ofsted report, they've singled out that personal development, behaviour and welfare is good, and that early years provision, the platform of the school for the children going through the school, that platform as good as well. But the rest of the categories, leadership and management, teaching, learning and assessment, and outcomes for pupil have all been requires improvement. And it really comes down to that outcomes for pupils, because right now, when Ofsted have come in, the external data that they have is a 2018 external data. So the national, people call it SATs, also early years GLD, good levels of development, the phonics in year one, or everything that came in 2018, which is in the public domain, that is the data that Ofsted had, and we have not yet had an opportunity to demonstrate the data from this year. The good news is that that data will be coming out pretty soon, and we will report that to parents before the end of the year, because the SATs results will come out pretty soon. We've already had teacher assessment judgments going in, and we can clearly see that the school is in an upwards journey and on a really good trajectory, and that's what Ofsted have said in the text of the report. But right now our outcomes are not there yet, and that's the most important thing. We need the children to get great outcomes so that when they graduate from our school, of which we're really proud and really feel so passionately involved in and want our school to do so well, when children leave our school they need to be secondary school ready, and they need to have a platform for life. They need to have their futures in their hands. They need to be able to build and make good choices. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and that's why today I've invited in one of the parents who we've had a lot of dialogue with during the year, and I would like to have an open discussion today talking about this report, digesting this report, obviously at a really initial phase. This is the first time that our parent has seen that report in his hands, and very little time to digest it, although he was present and took the time to come to the meeting on Wednesday evening, so heard from me about the judgments and where the school is going. But here's our chance to really talk about it. So if I could ask you to introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Mahmoud. I'm a parent. I have 2 children here, and I've been here for the last 3 years. I have a child in year 2 and a child in reception.
Brilliant. I want to say that Mahmoud also has a vested interest in education as well, because he has his own nurseries. He owns nurseries that are again building children's platforms. They are private, in the private sector. Maybe he wants to say a little bit more about that, but his nurseries, a lot of his nurseries are then feeders to our school as well. So he votes with the children from his provision, but also his own children are in the school. So he wants the school to do well. And in that sense, I feel as a head teacher, I embrace the challenge, and I would like to work together with him and with the parents, hear the parent voice as well, and try and find even more forums that we can use to really, really drive our school forward. So today, let's begin a dialogue.
Just going through the Ofsted report, and obviously hasn't been an easy time for us as parents. I've been here for 3 years now with 3 different head teachers, which is quite difficult because there's 3 different directions, there's 3 different expectations that a head teacher wants from the teachers, which will eventually then filter down to the children and their development and their attainment. So that's, for me, that's the most difficult process. It's disappointing to get requires. No one wants the school that your child attends to have a requires improvement. But it's what do we do going forward? I think as a head teacher, as the governors, as the parents, as the teachers collectively, what do we do going forward? Because you can only go up rather than going back down.
So first of all, what I want to say to that is it's disappointing for parents. It's also hugely disappointing for staff. It's demoralizing, and you know as well, having provisions where there are staff working so hard, it's demoralizing for staff to work so hard and then get this judgment, which is hard not to take personally. And that's why I do want to say a big thank you to the staff of Grange, because they work so hard and they want the best for the children. It's a dedicated staff that want the best for the children. So you ask, what can we do going forward? You do say there have been different head teachers, different visions, everybody trying, but the point is, going forward, we need to know that the school's going forward in a good way. And the first thing I want to say is, it's not just going forward, it's also about what's been happening this year. Because the other thing is, a lot of this Ofsted judgment, if I just read from the text starts off and it says, this is a school that requires improvement. I'm adding in the word because. Leaders have not ensured that the school has remained good since its last inspection. So the important thing to say is this report is looking over the time since the last inspection, which was almost 4 years ago to the day. It was, I think, in June 2015 or May 2015. So the point is, that's what Ofsted are looking at. Now, the thing to recognize is already this year we've been on a mission. And you ask, what are we doing going forward? Well, what have we done already this year to go forward? And the biggest thing is the absolute focus on outcomes and impact. Now that is not for one moment to look away from well-being of children. I'm a great believer, and if you ask what my vision is, I'm a great believer in the strength of character development and the power of education that relates to the whole child, the character of the child. So I feel really, really positive that even with this, as to quote your word, disappointing Ofsted, personal development, behavior and welfare has been graded as good. And we can come back to that. Why is that good? But that's because we are focusing on the whole child. But the focus this year has been also on, it's not just enough for the child to have a good day, to feel happy, to feel safe, to feel positive. We want our children to metaphorically leave with their skills and knowledge and understanding and achievements in their hand and take it with them to secondary school. So this year we looked at assessment. Right at the beginning, I looked at what are the systems that the school is using for measuring data. It's a bit controversial because a lot of people say, well, hang on a second, don't start with assessment, look at the teaching and learning experience. But to me, you can't measure teaching and learning if you don't have an end-point view. And that's what assessment does. Assessment kind of says, yes, 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 but let's measure this. And we're going somewhere, we're aiming. Where are we aiming? We have age-related expectations, we know the national standards, expectations, we have a national curriculum, we know the expectations that children are supposed to have. We know what greater depth is even like. We know we're working towards this line. And we know that every child has to make progress. Whatever their starting point is, they must do the best that they can possibly do. So we bought new software so that we can track rigorously the assessment. We've done CPD staff training on that software. And it's quite a hard thing because we had to buy the software, we had to do the training. The teachers were only really able to start using that properly in January. The system we had before was very, very solid and sound in terms of the values of assessment, but it took too long to turn that data around, so we couldn't use the data for teachers, then use it. Gap analysis, well, what if I see this child isn't doing well enough, what can I do with it? Now, our turnaround is so fast. Every half term, teachers are putting it in, the data, that data is at the point of learning. I mean, we can talk much more about data, but that means that teachers have a better understanding of where the child is at. And then every half term we're doing pupil progress meetings, so we're saying, well, where's the gap in this child? What can we do? And then everybody is saying, right, let's close the gap. We can see the picture of the data showing that children are making more progress. Ofsted say in this report, yeah, but you haven't proved it yet. We're saying, please stick around with us, wait for those SATs results in July, and also wait for our end of year reporting of all data, the teacher assessment data that's going in, and understand that the external data is going to reflect the journey that the school is actually on, which is all about impact outcomes without sacrificing the personal development of the children.
Ofsted came too early for the school.
You know, I'm a great believer. I have to sort of declare my personal beliefs. So I'm a great believer in destiny. Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens when it happens for a reason. And, you know, if you say to me, Ofsted came too early, I'm going to turn that around and say, what can we learn from when Ofsted came right now? And I'm going to say like this. The risk, the danger with Ofsted coming right now is that people just read the judgment and they say overall effectiveness requires improvement. That's the danger with Ofsted having come now. The positive with Ofsted having come now is that if you read the text, they're validating what we're doing now, and they're saying to us, do it even better, do it even more. Lift yourselves and lift your heads, and as staff, as teachers, as parents, support your children because the school is on the right journey. But it's not there yet. Now, the other thing is Ofsted are going to come back in not more than 30 months' time, probably around about 2 years' time. And that's when they will hold us to account, the next one. And that's when you need to hold this leadership to account, everybody at every level, and say, right, that's when we get the good. So the Ofsted for now, the value of this report is take the feedback and do not be knocked off course from what we've been doing this year. I think it's a huge validation, personal development, behavior, welfare, because we're a very inclusive school. We're a school that doesn't turn children away. We're a school that doesn't look away from when children misbehave. We try our best over time to bring out the best in every child. We believe that diversity is such a source of wealth and richness, and that means diversity in terms of culture, in terms of religion, in terms of socioeconomic, but also in terms of every child matters. And to get that validation of personal development, behavior, welfare, that it's good, fills me with inspiration to carry on looking at the whole child. But what it means is, do not look away just now. Get the consistency in the teaching and learning so that the outcomes, the impact of that teaching and learning is reflected in the data, the outcomes of the children when they finish Grange and go to secondary school. So
my only worry with that is with all of this is so you have parents that have obviously interest in the school because their children attend. My worry is how would the required improvement impact on those parents who may now believe this may not be the right school. This is my biggest worry, because I've already heard parents since the meeting come out and say, maybe I need to move my child to another school, because regardless of what this whole page, like this whole report says, parents only really read the top section. So that's my biggest worry, is what impact will it have, short-term and long-term impact, where will it affect children applying for the school? Will it affect parents leaving the school? Which then has a bigger knock-on effect with funding. As you know, every school is funded per child. The less children here, the less funding the school gets, the less the school can spread the funding to teaching assistant, other staff. So that's my biggest worry.
And what I'm going to say is, it's well articulated, and the most important thing is not to dismiss those worries of parents. The thing is, the word worry, I'm going to try and say what we need to do is take people's worries, turn those worries into concerns, turn those concerns into an action plan with accountability, and say, right, it's no good to just stay with worried. It's no good to just stay with concerns. The point is to say, right, do we know where we're going? Do we know what we want to do? Are we going to aim there? And then it's got to be trust between us that, right, we are going to hold you accountable. We want to have the opportunities to be talking as we go along. And then we want to get there. So I'm going to say, parents are right to want the best for their children. Each parent needs to advocate for their children. We have a vision in our school, and I just want to I am getting to an answer to your point, so sorry if it's slightly long-winded, but my point is, okay, the inspector, during the inspection, he said something so profound to me. I was sitting with Mr. Rashid, who is our leader of teaching and learning, our assistant head, and the inspector said, okay, Mr. Rashid, what does teaching and learning mean at your school? What is good about teaching and learning? What's your vision for teaching and learning? And Mr. Rashid started answering, and he said, and he was saying things that we all want for our children. We want teaching and learning to really help each child to make progress. We want them to get the knowledge, the skills, the understanding that they need as they go forward, all of this. And then the inspector said, yes, but in your school, what does it mean? Why this school? And then I thought, as he was talking, I was thinking to myself, and I'm a parent as well, and I've seen schools from both sides, and I've been in parent evenings where I'm the parent sitting on the other side, where I've been talking to the head teacher, where, you know, all of us, we want to say to the head teacher, you know, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? We want the best for our school. And I thought, what is it that makes this school a school worth sending your child to? Irrespective of the judgment of here. This is a school, this is a truly London school, this is a truly British value school. This is a school that believes that diversity is not just a challenge, but it's really a sense of richness and of wealth. And it's diversity at every level. Truly every child matters over here. We have language of the month. We want to learn the greeting of every child in our school in whichever language they speak. And that's not for one moment to minimize English or anything like that. But it's like to say, our country can be so great, and it is so great because of all the difference. We celebrate the difference. And that's what teaching and learning is over here. It's not when you're a teacher and you're standing in there and you're not just thinking, right, I need to teach. I want every single child in here to learn. And children are so full of everything they carry as well. And we say, bring that. Let's work together with you. Let's shape. Let's make children confident and considerate and advocates. So ultimately, with all of this, our school is a place where if we get it right, it's an incredible place to be. If you believe that difference, teamwork, everybody bringing their talents, everybody bringing what they have to the table makes the world a better place, and this is the school to be. So I'm going to say all of this means our teaching of learning is going to be more and more profound. So I was speaking about the vision of the school. The vision is we're not just a school, we're going to be a community. We're going to always work to be a community. We're not just going to be teachers. We're going to be difference makers. We're going to find the way to make the difference. We're not just going to be parents. We are going to be the support team for our children through their life. And ultimately, we're not just going to have pupils. We're going to have the future. So I think with that vision, staying true to that vision and talking to parents and going and hearing everybody. Now, I think the one big challenge and coming out of all of this is how can we involve the parents more? How can we
That's
find
the biggest worry.
That's it. So how can we find a voice for parents? So I've taken that as a challenge for myself to, and he was present at the parent Ofsted meeting, David Herbert, who's from the Aspire Edison Learning. So he is our school improvement partner. That's our school improvement partnership. So I've taken it to him and said, right, we want to improve our school. So he's already, since we've had a lot of dialogue since that meeting, we are talking about how, and I don't want to speak too much about the detail, but how we can have regular parent school leadership conversations that help to filter into the development planning that keeps taking our school forward. And not at crisis point, not at the point always where everybody's, oh my gosh, we've got a report, we need to talk, but permanently going forward. You actually brought something up really well, which we'd already talked about, but the challenge always for me is to make sure it doesn't just stay with me, but distributed leadership, it goes actually where. And you brought that up before. You'd spoken about curriculum working party, and you said, can the parents be involved in all the curriculum work the school is doing, which is really about the new Ofsted focus as well, because that's another conversation. New Ofsted framework with it, and this was the old Ofsted framework, by the way, but the new Ofsted framework will be the next inspection, and that's another thing that we have to make sure that our school is within the new Ofsted framework. But the new Ofsted framework is beautiful. It is all a focus on curriculum. Really curriculum. And you asked, how can parents be involved? And straight away, Ms. Drackard, our deputy head, who's been leading amazingly for our school, the curriculum working party, and all the different teachers who've been involved, and the whole school have been involved. And she heard you say that, and I hope you heard me, and she heard me validate and say, yes, we're going to find a way for parents to be involved in shaping that as well. So if you ask again, and accountability, and maybe we'll have to do another video about that, a separate video about that, is how are we doing that? But that's the absolute key one, parents being involved.
I think without parent involvement, not only will this not go any further, the school won't be successful, because the parents and the children are quote unquote the customers of the school. Especially the child is the main focal point of the school, and behind every child there's a parent that's pushing the child at home, and that's really pushing the child to succeed. And I think that's really important, because the parents do sometimes feel, and I do hear it because I speak, as you know, majority of parents, and especially any parent under year 3 and below, or majority of my students. So, and parents speak to me openly, and they say, we don't feel involved in the school, we don't feel our opinions are being listened to. And it's, how do you then go from that negativity to, okay, you are being listened to, you are being involved. Within limits, obviously there's things that parents cannot be involved in every education establishment, with every organisation, there's certain decisions that as a head teacher and the senior management team need to make themselves. But there is more scope for parents to be directly involved, whether it's the curriculum shaping, whether it's planning trips where they say, oh, we would like X, Y, and Z, and if it's feasible and you haven't got anything planned, then why not? So it's low-level things which parents can get involved in, which will then make them feel special, that they are part of the school, like I said, they are part of the organisation, the community, and even the children, whether it's having a school council, where the children are the school council, where there's certain decisions where you have a council of children from year 1, year 2, right away to year 6, where they sit down in meetings and you discuss, right, children, we're going to discuss whether it's meat-free Mondays, just to be more healthier. What do you children think? You agree in the council, you stamp it, you go forward. That's a child-led decision, or children-led decision, which will then make them really proud that they are speaking on behalf of the other children, and this is their school also.
So a few things to say with that one. First of all, on the school council, obviously you haven't had enough time to digest, but the school council, they mentioned in the report, and actually that's one of the reasons why personal development, behaviour and welfare is good, is because we have involved the children so much and they are so proud. I asked the lead inspector what was his highlight of the inspection, and he said just hearing the year 6 children talk with such pride about their writing. They bought books with their writing, and they spoke with such pride about their writing and the school. And it was interesting, he said he had a big debate with them about, you know, how good is the school? I was obviously not involved in all of that, but people who know the Ofsted inspection will know that we're present at team meetings afterwards with Ofsted, and we're allowed to be truly shared inspection. So we were privy to some of the stuff that didn't go into the report, but he spoke about the pride of the children in their work, and the Student Council mentioned. But I wanted to push back on something else that you said. You said the parents are the customers. I'm going to turn that a little bit around and actually say, who are the customers of our school? And it's actually not the parents. It's actually the children who are the customers. Yeah, it's a funny thing I often think about as a head teacher. Who are we most accountable to? Who am I most accountable to? And I can make a whole long list.
You can't have one without the other.
I'm going to make a whole long list. I'm getting to it, and I'm not dismissing parents as customers, but I'm going to say something else. I'm accountable to the governors. I'm accountable to the DFE. I'm accountable to the LEA. I'm accountable to Ofsted. I'm accountable to parents. But most of all, who am I actually accountable to as head teacher? To the children. I'm going to say something else. As parents, who are you most accountable to? Your children. Are you going to bring them up well? Are you going to give them a future? Are you going to make them into the best that they can be? There needs to be a partnership over here between the school and the parents, because we are on the same side. We're actually in business together, and our customers are our children, our shared children.
Now, mutual interest.
Mutual interest. And what I'm going to say is, I realize what you're saying to me. You're saying to me, let's find the key, let's find that way. And that's what I say, we'll have to, that is critical and crucial. And I kind of, even inside myself, I'm thinking, right, there are 600 plus children over here. There are not quite 300 families, but well into the 200s of families. There's 90 staff, but we have to find a way of finding the voice for each one of these families. And that's our challenge, because even sitting as a parent, you're one parent out of those nearly 300 families. I'm going to say, even as head teacher, I'm one member of staff out of the 90 members of staff. But we need to find that key. I realize that key's within me. I realize that key's within you. And I think part of that key is even today, us sitting here and having this discussion. As I said, part of the key is also our School Improvement Partnership, the Aspire Partnership. David Herbert and also Edwina Namni are our two School Improvement Partners. They're part of it as well, and that's a challenge that will go. Our parent governors are part of that. Our governors are part of that. So yes, together we are going to definitely build on that one. And that needs to be a space, like watch this space. And I think we need to make another video as we go along, checking in. Are we getting there or not getting there?
No, I agree, and I think without that, and just to go back, one of the first things that you said, I couldn't agree more when you said you invested in software for tracking the children. I didn't pick that out, but just remember that. I think that's so important, because if you don't track the progress of children, then you kind of walk in blind. You don't know what really to build on if you're not tracking them. So I think that's probably one of the
key things. I'm going to say, please don't for one moment think that they weren't tracking the children before. But the point is, and I'm going to quote a governor from a previous school where I was head teacher. His name was Aziz. He had a background in finance, in banking, but also in data and numbers. His quote, which always stuck with me, and I love this from a governor. So Aziz, if you are watching, thank you. What he said is, whenever we'd give him a report with numbers, he'd say, all I see is numbers. And the profound value of that statement is, data means nothing unless you use it for impact. So yes, tracking, but even more importantly, gap analysis, and then a planned strategy based on the information that you've received. However, this is the important thing is, that takes time. And in school, we are learning over time. It's not like I think sometimes this is a misunderstanding, and this, or I would say this is the art of teaching, even beyond the science of teaching, is you can't stand in a class and just impart the knowledge, right, I've taught it, the children have learnt it. You have to revisit, you have to go over and over and over, you have to build, you have to review, revise, you have to link and signpost to the future, you have to keep on going over and over. Learning is such a journey, and it's so, so important. The point is, those teachers, in the middle of all of this incredible work that they're doing, they need that information. So that's where technology, software, is so amazing. Because in the past, you know, when I started teaching, in the olden days, so then the thing was, you sat with your mark book, you sat with you highlighted, you constructed your own, you know, spreadsheets, blocked books, you know, maths books were brilliant. But this is what technology has done now. You know, like, just put the data in, if you know what you're looking for, you can get it so quickly, teacher says, thank you, okay, great. Because, and this is part of my mantra that I've always said, check your intuition against the data, because I believe teachers have intuition. Teachers know their children. Check, and do not for one moment dismiss your intuition. Check your intuition against the data, but then please check the data against the intuition, because that's the other problem with spreadsheets. There's still room for human error. It just takes one line reading, and you know, and you go, excuse me, that is not right. You go and check human error input, or like we read the wrong line, etc. So check your intuition against the data, check the data against your intuition. I endorse that, and it ultimately all comes back to impact. We need a vision of our children. Some people are quite dismissive about vision, but to me, it's everything, because your vision is your goal, it's your destination, it's your, and then you can use your compass, you can use your, where are we going again? If you lose your train of thought, or if something, to go back to your question, if something like a requires improvement judgment comes, that's a risk. So is it going to throw us off course, or, hang on a second, do we know our vision for the children? Do we know that we want these children to graduate with the skills, the knowledge, the understanding, to give them the opportunity to make the best choices as they grow in their lives and to build on everything? If we're doing that, then yes, it requires improvement, but hold your nerve. Read the text, use the feedback, that's really important and valuable, and that will keep us going forward on the trajectory, which is actually mentioned in the text. And in 2 years' time, let's get that validation from Ofsted. In the interests of our children, get that validation in 2 years' time, but right now it's happening already. So again, back to your worry for the parents, the big thing to say is, it's happening already now. This requires improvement judgment, reflects over time, but also it's incredibly important to not just say, oh, it requires improvement because of the past. No, no, no. There is feedback that is so valuable. There is feedback that validates. There is feedback where it actually tells us, you know what? We need to, I'm going to quote over here, we need, well, I'm slightly paraphrasing. They say, plans for improvement are not linked sharply enough to pupils' attainment. Fair point. So, turn that into a strategic objective. Plans for improvement should be sharply linked to pupils' attainment and progress to help drive more rapid improvements. I'm hoping to share with parents before the end of the year as well a strategic document which will be, right, here are our strategic objectives straight from the Ofsted report. These are the ones to hold us accountable. Every term, every opportunity, let's look back at those. Are we on track? Are we on track? And in our dialogue, part of the strategic objective is to find the forums that will be most effective with the numbers of parents, but really that dialogue happens, which is any organization's challenge, and we embrace it.
If I ask you, because you've only been here a year, what's the
Less than a year.
Less than a year, sorry. What's the two proudest things that you've introduced to the school, and what's two things, or challenges, or things that you think I could have done better since you've been here?
Such great questions, because I have to say, and actually, great questions, because part of the problem as a leader sometimes is you get a judgment, you go straight into action mode, right? That's it, requires improvement, what are we going to do? And the problem with that is reaction, that is response, that is all the focus on action, and that's dismissing the value of thought. That's dismissing the value of philosophy, of all the great religious thoughts, the meaning, the vision, the everything. So, and that's why, coming back to what I said about vision. So I have given myself some thinking time, and I gave even the senior leadership team, we had thinking day after Ofsted, where the entire day was senior leadership team, facilitated by, again, our Aspire School Improvement Partnership, to just be thinking, where we said, stop, don't try and say, this is what we're going to do, think. Take it in, the value of this report. So, those questions are so great because I love that thinking, but action is required as well. So, proudest moments. When I came to the school, I did come with, and we all come with our own value system, our own vision. Going a bit personal again, I was born in a Jewish family in a little town in South Africa. And I was born at the end of the 60s. So I grew up in the 70s. I gained so much from my parents, from my father. And he had a vision of a world that could be a better place. Now, if you know anything about South African history, then you know what a powerful thing that is. For myself as a child, I mean, the funny thing is now, I in my 50s, I look back and I think, wow, those were amazing conversations. And I remember my father talking to me about a vision of togetherness, of people being valued for their humanity, of a world that does justice to what it can be and the values. My father's a deeply religious person, and he has a vision of what this world can be. And he spoke to me, and I saw him in action, by the way. I won't go too much into his history, but I saw him in action, living that life of equal human respect for other people in a early 1970s South Africa. And that was always my dream and my aspiration, was to work in a place where there was true diversity. I mean, as I've grown older, I've realized it's not just a blind dream. There are challenges that come with truly living the strength of diversity. There are real challenges. But I've got to Grange, and Grange is a place of diversity. And a part of those challenges of diversity is, it's easy to everybody be the same. It's easy to go down the line of zero tolerance, right? That's it. This is the way it is. You either conform or get out. It's easy to do that. And I believe in saying, and such challenges, but I believe in saying no. Everybody can come to the table. Everybody belongs. And everybody has to be given that opportunity to be the best that they can be. So, with all the challenges of a school of over 600 children, with all their levels of need, and everybody coming from their angle, to be given personal development, behavior and welfare, good, that's amazing. And that was one of the things that I said when I got to the school, is I could see that we needed to do work on this. This was not a very positive starting point. And what I did is did a bit of research, found a curriculum that focuses on PSHE, Personal Social Health Education, a curriculum that wasn't just about knowledge, but was about understanding, about calming, about mindfulness, about discussion and dialogue and development, and not dismissing for a moment everybody's point of view, but together a synthesis. So I bought that curriculum. There was an investment. It was a few £1,000s. I will mention them and give them a plug as well. Jigsaw, the Jigsaw curriculum. Thank you, Jigsaw. And then I made a non-negotiable. Every class has to have an hour of PSHE using this curriculum once a week. And because the curriculum, that meant that for teachers it wasn't too much of a workload that they had to go and plan something just with a broad brushstrokes vision. They could take the Jigsaw curriculum, which is a fantastic one, and put it into action. Some fantastic work, The children talk about it in my YouTube club, which is another thing. Even we've got a few videos, even on our Grange YouTube channel, which I'll give a plug for, which is on our website in the news section. There's a video about, for example, tips on friendship. How can you grow your friendship? So putting that in and just saying this is it has had real impact. I feel really proud about that. The other thing is, I decided it goes way beyond the formal curriculum. So we have had Harvest Festival over here. We have had Diwali Week over here. We have had Eid and Eid Fair. Plug to the PTA. Thank you for the Eid Fair, which was fantastic. But also Eid Day in our school, where children came in traditional dress, where there were celebration workshops for the values of Eid. There was a Muslim storyteller came in and spoke about through the medium of story for the values of Eid. We have done for the Sri Lanka tragedy, we've turned that into a celebration of life by having a Sri Lanka cricket match and a Catholic service with all the values. We've done a Muslim call to prayer when we had the Christchurch tragedies. We've brought wild animals into the school, including tarantulas, and I've got to say that was a personal highlight for me to hold a tarantula in my hand, challenge. All that richness has been reflected in this report as well. So I think those are the two of the proudest moments. And then I'm just going to add one more, because that's a challenge one for me. And that is seeing in the text of the report that the focus on outcomes, even buying that software, but more importantly, because that's just a superficial external act, but turning the data into more useful tool because of the time frame, and that already having impact, which is in the text, not in the judgment, but in the text, that I would say my highlights. So you asked me two. Did you ask any other part of the question?
Was to challenges, just things that you would do different. Absolutely. Or approach different.
So I'm gonna say, and I don't want you to think that I'm steering away from it and I turn everything to a positive. Don't want you to think that, but I know if I would have come into the school more right, this is it, non-negotiable, prescriptive, the focus has to be on outcomes, this is the way you're going to do it, this is the time ordered, absolutely. I have a feeling that we could have got outcomes to good. We could have even got the overall effectiveness judgment to good. I'm going to say that might have been there. I say it openly. So we might have been sitting here with a good Ofsted, and parents might have felt happier, staff might have felt happier, I for a moment might have felt happier. So there's a part of me that feels, why did I not make that my focus from the start? Do it like this. And I'm going to say, I'm not just saying that in a bland way. In a previous school, I have done that. Come into a school that had 3 judgments, 3 Ofsteds over 3 years, less than good. So an inadequate requires improvement. Came into a school like that. Came in and had an HMI Section 8, if anybody's familiar with Ofsted, they will come in between Section 5, which is the full judgment, and especially where they're concerned about a school, they'll come and they'll do a report. They did a Section 8 and the HMI spoke to me and said, you don't have any other options, the school has to get good in the next inspection. And I worked very hard in the way that I'm just describing over there to be absolutely focused on outcomes, on this is the way we have to do things. And there was a good Ofsted. So I'm saying I know how to do that. But my question is, for our school, would that have really, really been the best thing for the school? It's a truly hard thing to sit here and say that. But my honest feeling is, by the school getting a requires improvement now, we will lose something. There will be the parents who will vote with their feet and say goodbye. I just want to see good over here. But there'll be the parents who have Grange in their hearts and who want to think a little bit deeper and who want to make a difference and actually can see the value of the school. And they'll say, we're going to push the head teacher harder, yes, but we're still going to stick here because we want our school to be better and better. For the staff who stay and say, okay, they've given us the feedback, we can see where we need to be sharper, but we can also see the text that what we're doing right now is positive. And even for me, I can say, right, I've got a goal, I've got something, and I've got feedback, and I've got a time frame, and we can do this not in the ways of harshness and non-negotiables and zero tolerance, and it's black and white, and it's just like diametric, you know, like, but we can do this through the ways of depth, profound, sustained, over time, upward trajectory that builds, and is not just for a moment,
Longer lasting.
but over time. Yeah, and in that way I'm going to say, I hope that answers your question.
It does.
Even though it wasn't exactly.
It does, and to come back, I have to say, being fair. May not be too shocked, but coming fair, I have to come back on you on one of your strengths, which a lot of parents did have some issues with, was the BHSC, and I think it would be unfair for me to sit here today and not sort of highlight some of the parents, although some parents did feel that it was a bit rushed on them too quick, especially them, you being new to the head teacher, and it was, a lot of parents did felt like it was a non-negotiable part, and a lot of them still do feel like that. So I think for myself, giving very open and honest feedback, I think BHSC, the way it was handled, maybe could have been a less of a non-negotiable. It could have been more, okay, this is what we're doing, and it's up to you whether you want to do it or not. So a lot of parents did feel like that, and I thought it would be wrong for me not to mention that to you.
Yes.
So a lot of parents, and I've known a child from my class actually left after the meeting, with the BHSE meeting, because they felt like they were being forced to do it, and if they don't, then they have to have a meeting with you, which they didn't feel comfortable, so they left the school.
So I'll say a few things on that one,
I'm very direct and honest.
And I accept it. It's important for us, always with respect, and then as long as it's with respect, I think we can grow together. So a few things to say on that one is, we've spoken about the vision. Now let's remember the mission that I've come with. So the mission, I said, let's all, and I was speaking really for staff, because staff are the ones who need to implement. So the mission is really for staff. Let's learn the child. Let's learn what works. Let's learn what it takes to succeed. Final one, never give up, start again. And I'm going to say, yes, that was the mission for the staff, for us as teachers, educators, but really that's my mission for life. It's, if you just look at it how I see life, learn what works, learn what it takes to succeed, never give up, learn. So to me, as a head teacher, I feel, if I say learn, be a learner. And absolutely, to me, every moment, that's the wonderful, beautiful thing about learning. So if you say to me, yes, am I fixed? No, I'm learning. Could it have been different? Possibly. Maybe. With hindsight, definitely I could go back and address some of those meetings, which I still think were incredibly valuable. Over 100 people came to our different consultations that we had at different forums. And I also think it was specific aspects of PSHE that was there. What I'm going to say though is, I'm going to say, coming back to your point about parents that was your hypothesis, that they would feel intimidated to come and meet with me. I would hope that a little bit, that even this is a little bit of a demonstration of how we can talk as parents and school. But I want to say, over time, everything comes back to relationships, and over time we build relationships and we learn, and sometimes relationships, it's hard, and then we try to heal. I'm going to come back to never give up until the moment that we leave this planet. we have opportunity to heal relationships. Not easy, sometimes it is so hard, but I mean ultimately that's our vision for the world, that you can heal broken relationships. We spoke earlier about algebra actually, the reunion of the fragments. So what I'm going to say is I hope that parents are learning with me over time. There's always dialogue, there's always discussion. Do I have opinions? Absolutely yes. Do I have a vision? Absolutely yes. Am I a leader? I embrace my leadership, I will say that. And I realize that difficult decisions have to be made. Can I learn? Can I always improve? Absolutely yes. And we will find ways to do that. So I'm going to finish with a quote from Browning. And I think it goes both ways, because you said 3 years, 3 head teachers. And I want to say, and I hope, I mean, everything is not always within our own hands, but grow old along with me, the best is yet to be. It's a quote from Browning. And I hope that we can build, maybe make more videos as we go along of our dialogue and our discussion, so that we can keep on revisiting things, because that's another thing that I believe. If we are learners, learning is not just linear progression. You have to keep on revisiting, reworking, rethinking, growing, and ultimately isn't that the whole story of life?
Yeah. I agree.
But thanks so much for your time, for coming in today.
No, thank you for having me today.
Yeah.
So you're very productive.
Thank you. We go forward.
Thank you.